7 signs you're not just empathic, you're a super empath. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the tension, even though no one said a word? Or been the one who notices when your friend says, "I'm fine," but you know they're not even close? If that sounds familiar, you're not just empathic. You may be what I call a super empath. Now, this isn't about being too sensitive or getting walked all over. In fact, being a super empath can be a superpower if you know how to wield it. So how do you know if you're not just empathic, but on another level entirely? Imagine walking into a room and feeling an overwhelming sense of heaviness, but no one has said a word. There's no drama happening in front of you, no visible cues, yet your chest tightens, your energy drops, and you just know something's off. That's not just being sensitive, that's emotional absorption. And for a super empath, it's not occasional, it's constant. You don't just recognize emotions in others, you feel them in your own body. It's as if your emotional boundaries are porous, and the feelings of others pass through you like wind through an open window. This can be beautiful in the right settings. You can sit next to someone who's grieving and understand what they need without them saying a word. You know when to speak, when to be silent, when a hand on their shoulder will do more than any advice ever could. You offer empathy that's not performative but visceral. People feel deeply held in your presence. But the flip side is, you also pick up on emotional noise that isn't yours to carry. Someone else's anxiety becomes your tension. Someone's resentment sits in your chest like a stone, even if they never say a word. Over time, this emotional permeability can lead to exhaustion. You go through your day reacting to feelings that didn't originate from you, but you experience them all the same. You may feel moody or drained and not understand why, only to realize later you were around someone going through their own storm. For a super empath, feelings don't just pass by, they land and they linger. What makes this even more intense is that you often don't have an off switch. Empathy for you isn't a skill you turn on during meaningful conversations, it's your baseline state. Whether you're at work, walking through a crowd, or scrolling on your phone, you're emotionally tuned in, often without choice. It's like you've got emotional radar operating 24/7. Even subtle shifts in tone, body language, or facial expression hit your system with clarity others don't even register. This is why crowded places, emotional conversations, or even watching certain movies can feel like a sensory overload. It's not that you're weak, it's that you're wide open. You've got an emotional antenna that's always picking up signals. That can lead to incredible connection with others, but only if you learn to filter what you let in and what you hold on to. You can be in the middle of a conversation, and while someone is saying all the right things, something inside you just knows it doesn't match. They smile, they nod, they use kind words, but there's a flicker in their eyes, a tension in their voice, a delay that gives everything away. For most people, it might go unnoticed, but not for you. You don't just hear what's said, you feel what's not. It's like your emotional senses are always scanning for inconsistencies, and you can detect discomfort, dishonesty, or sadness hiding behind a perfectly practiced mask. This ability to pick up on what's unsaid is not something you learned. It's instinctive. You're not overanalyzing, you're not imagining things. It's in the way someone's energy shifts when a certain name is mentioned. It's in the quick glance away when a hard topic comes up. It's the slight tension in a jaw or a hand clenched just a bit too tightly. Your mind may not always have the words to explain it, but your body reacts. You just know something's off. And this knowing often puts you in a strange position. People will tell you their version of the story, but you already sensed the truth before they even spoke. You've likely had moments where you were told everything's fine, but you knew it wasn't. And within days or weeks, the truth eventually surfaced, confirming what you felt all along. It can make you question your own reality at first. You may wonder if you're being paranoid or too intense, but time and time again, you're proven right. Not because you're judgmental, but because your emotional intuition is razor sharp. This sense of emotional undercurrents can be both a gift and a burden. You understand people more than they understand themselves sometimes. You can detect discomfort they're not ready to admit, or motives they haven't even processed. While others focus on words, you focus on energy, and energy never lies. You pick up on hesitation, envy, disappointment, attraction, sadness, all the things that linger beneath the surface. Because of this, people often find themselves being deeply vulnerable around you. Even if they didn't plan to share, something about your presence makes them open up. It's like you see the truth already, so they might as well say it. Your gift isn't about exposure. It's about connection. You make people feel known, even in silence. There's a reason your phone rings at 2 a.m. when someone's heart is breaking. You're not just someone people like to talk to, you're the person they need to talk to. When life unravels, you're the one they turn to. It's not because you have all the answers, but because you see them, even when they're at their worst. You don't flinch when someone cries. You don't offer cliches or try to fix things that aren't fixable. You just sit with them in the mess. And somehow that makes all the difference. People feel safe with you, often without fully understanding why. It's your presence. It's the way you hold space without judgment. It's your ability to listen without interrupting, to hear what's beneath their words, and to respond with empathy rather than advice. You don't rush people through their emotions. You don't need them to be okay in order for you to feel okay. And that's rare. That's why people cling to you when they're spiraling. You make emotional chaos feel less lonely. You've likely been called the therapist of your friend group. Everyone comes to you when things fall apart. After the breakup, after the job loss, during the panic attack. Not because you promised to fix their lives, but because being around you feels like coming home to themselves. You give them permission to feel without shame. That kind of emotional grounding is something many people never experience. So when they find it in you, they don't let go easily. But what most people don't see is what it costs you. Being everyone's emotional anchor means you often carry burdens that aren't yours. You hold their secrets, their fears, their breakdowns, and you rarely let your own show. Sometimes people get so used to leaning on you that they forget you might need support too. They assume you're strong enough to handle anything, and in some ways you are. But even anchors need rest. Still, you keep showing up because it's who you are. You care deeply, and you don't know how to love people halfway. You'd rather be exhausted than unavailable. You'd rather be overwhelmed than let someone feel alone. That's the heart of a super empath. You don't just offer compassion, you become a shelter. And even if no one says it out loud, the truth is you've been the lifeline more times than you can count. There are moments when you suddenly feel heavy, anxious, or emotionally off, and you can't figure out why. You retrace your steps, trying to find the reason. Nothing in your own life explains it. But then you remember the conversation you had earlier, or the crowded place you were just in, or the friend you spent time with who was clearly struggling beneath the surface. You realize the emotion you're carrying isn't yours. This is the daily reality of a super empath. You walk through the world like an emotional sponge, constantly absorbing energy from people, places, and interactions, even when you're not trying to. You can be in a perfectly fine mood and then step into a room where someone is silently angry and your body tenses. You start to feel irritated or restless, even though nothing changed inside you. That's emotional contagion. And it happens to you because your empathy isn't passive, it's active. You don't just notice energy, your system feels it, processes it, and in many cases holds onto it longer than it should. The exhaustion that follows isn't just mental, it's physical. You leave social settings completely drained, even if the people around you weren't outwardly emotional. It's not about what was said, it's about what was felt. Your nervous system is constantly scanning the emotional landscape, taking in subtle shifts, unspoken tension, suppressed pain, and even the collective atmosphere of a space. That constant intake wears you down, especially if you're not aware of it. Boundaries become essential, but they don't come naturally. You might feel guilty pulling back, saying no, or creating space between yourself and someone who's emotionally heavy. You want to be present, you want to help, and you often believe that if you can handle it, you should. But the truth is, you're not meant to be a container for everyone's emotions. You're not a dumping ground. You're a deeply feeling human being who needs energetic clarity just as much as emotional connection. One of the hardest lessons for a super empath is learning to distinguish between what's yours and what's not. That takes practice. It takes intentionality, because if you don't build a filter, you'll walk around carrying everyone else's emotional weight, confusing it for your own. And when you do that long enough, you stop recognizing where your own needs begin. That disconnection can quietly erode your energy, your clarity, and your peace. You have an intense drive to help. When someone's in pain, your instinct isn't to walk away, it's to move closer. You want to soothe, support, fix, understand, and carry whatever weight they can't. That's not something you were taught, it's something that lives in your bones. You feel people's struggles so deeply that stepping back feels almost cruel. And that's where the line starts to blur between helping someone and losing yourself in the process. As a super empath, you're constantly towing the edge of that line. You want to make things better, but you also notice when your identity starts to get tangled in someone else's healing. You can go from being a supportive presence to a silent rescuer without even realizing it. You start putting their needs above yours. You silence your discomfort to keep the peace. You overlook your own exhaustion just to be the strong one. At first, it feels noble, like love, like compassion, but slowly it becomes unsustainable. It's easy to lose yourself when you care as much as you do. You begin to confuse self-sacrifice with loyalty. You might stay in relationships, friendships, or even work environments long past their expiration date because someone needs you. And when you leave, it doesn't feel like setting a boundary. It feels like abandonment. You question whether you're being selfish, whether you should have just given a little more. That's the trap super empaths fall into, believing their worth is tied to how much they can endure. The hardest part is that people start to expect it. They come to you not just for comfort, but for relief. They feel better when they offload, but you're left holding the weight. And when you finally hit your limit, when you set a boundary or say, I can't do this anymore, it shocks them because you've trained them without meaning to, that you'll always show up no matter the cost to yourself. This cycle can only change when you recognize that saving someone isn't the same as loving them. You can be compassionate without becoming consumed. You can care deeply without overextending. But it requires you to check in with yourself constantly. Ask, am I helping from a place of strength or sacrificing from a place of depletion? That distinction matters more than people think, because when you give from a place of emptiness, you don't just lose energy. You start to lose your sense of self. So if you're sitting there realizing this is me, that you don't just understand people, you feel them, that you don't just care, you carry, I want you to know something important. This isn't a flaw. It's not a weakness. It's a gift. Yes, it can feel overwhelming. Yes, it can be exhausting. And yes, you will attract people who try to take more than they give. But don't let that trick you into dimming your light. The world doesn't need less of your empathy. It needs more of your boundaries, more of your strength, and more of your self-protection, so you can keep showing up without losing yourself. Being a super empath isn't about being everything for everyone. It's about learning to be everything for yourself first, so that when you give, it comes from a place of power, not depletion. You don't have to harden to protect your heart. You just have to honor it. You were built to feel deeply, to connect meaningfully, and to love fiercely. That's not too much. That's your magic. So don't shrink, don't apologize, don't numb it down to fit in. Own it, protect it, and keep becoming the strongest, clearest, most grounded version of yourself, because that's the super empath's true evolution. Thank you for being open, for feeling deeply, and for showing up in a world that often tries to convince people like you to feel less. If no one's told you this lately, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're powerful. And you've barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of when you honor who you really are. Take care of your heart. It's one of the rarest things in the world. Goodbye for now. And thank you